Let me show you how to do some decorative couching with your Longarm machine. I'm Myrna from A Quilter's Choice, APQS West, located in Highlands Ranch, Colorado. I'm going to couch razzle dazzle around a block and some stitching. A couple of the things that you will need is a self-threading needle or a darning needle. If you're using the darning needle, you'll want to have a floss threader because this thread is really thick. And it's also has metallic thread in it. So sometimes going through the self-threading needle, it will shred the thread a little bit. But I use both. And the floss threader does help get the thread through the eye of the needle. Also, I've taken off my hopping foot, my 1/4-inch hopping foot, and I'm using the low profile foot because I have more visibility, but you can use either. I just set my spool of thread or yarn or whatever I'm using on the quilt, and I'll unroll some. And you can see how the razzle dazzle will unwind. So, and you want to leave a long enough tail so that you can cut that off and you can bury it. So let's pull up our bobbin thread. I'm just going to stitch down the ditch and across and back up and come over here and stitch around this heart. So I'm going to bring my bobbin thread up. Now, sometimes I do this in stitch regulated, sometimes I do it in manual with turning my machine down. So make sure, I'm just going to do a couple of back tacks, slide my thread underneath where in the corner of my fabric. So I'm just going to do a couple of back tacks. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm either wiggling my machine back and forth or wiggling my thread. I switch back and forth. It just depends on what I'm doing and how it feels. So we're just going to start doing this, and doing in the ditch is pretty darn easy. So at this point, I'm just wiggling my machine just to secure this thread down. It's super simple. And again, just keep coming down. Sometimes when I'm going around the curve, I do wiggle my thread because it's easier. When I get into this corner, I want to do a couple of extra stitches to make sure that that corner is tacked down. So I've moved my thread off to the side. And again, I just start, make sure I get back on my seam line. You can add this to between your stitches or between your seam lines, on your seam lines. You can echo, you can go into your design. Just like this. Just wiggling the machine or the thread. Tap the corner down. Now I'm going to, I just rolled some more thread off. If you have a cone holder on top of your machine, you can hold this up here, mounted on here. I don't want to mount it this way because it doesn't come off as smoothly and it can catch, but coming off vertically is good. But I just let it sit on my quilt top. Now I'm going to come up this ditch and I'm going to start picking up the stitch line here. So again, I'm going to get my thread lined up. Also, you don't want to pull this super tight. It doesn't really stretch, but it doesn't need tight. Just holding it in place is just fine. Another thing on Razzle Dazzle or some other fibers that you might be using, you don't want to roll it, because if you're rolling the thread, again, it can cause it to unravel and untwist. So don't roll it, just hold it. Just going right up the ditch line. If you happen to miss a piece and it isn't secure, all you're going to do is back up. Get a hold of the thread. Now here, I did back tack a little bit. Now I'm going to lift my needle and bring my thread around and keep it pretty close to my stitch line. I don't want to be holding it right down here, because when I'm going in a straight line, it's no big deal. But when you're going in curves or into points, you really want to have more control over your couching material. And again, I may be wiggling the yarn and the machine, or one or the other. You see how my hand is just wiggling back and forth? It's just a little bit. And we're coming around this curve. Take a little more time. Bring your hand back around. Get it into position. So I'm going in here and coming back out. Get that point stitched down. Bring my needle up. I'm going to move my thread around. Get it back in position. This seems slow and tedious, but once you get going on it, you can go pretty quickly. Now you can turn your stitch regulator off. So let's see what happens there. Now I'm not going to be running full speed with my stitch regulator off. So I'm going to find a speed that's working for me right now. It could be different in an hour. That's too slow. But you might want to go that slow. In this case, I would move the thread. Let's speed it up here a little bit. Turn it off. I'm going to bring my thread around this way again. Rest it. Go back a little bit. Now I was stitching with yellow thread when I stitched these hearts in here, and then I pulled out a purplish razzle dazzle. Normally I would probably use the same color that I had stitched with, but it doesn't really matter. So here I've really back tacked that, so I'm not going to worry about burying it, but I'm going to cut that thread off, and then I'm going to cut my bobbin thread. I did not bring it back up this because we've already gone in, back out, and then we've gone in again, so I did want to go over that again. So you can see how it really adds a lot of sparkle and shine. This thread. So the first thing I'm going to do is make a knot. I just lay the thread over my index finger and my middle finger and loop it over, come back through and put my middle finger under the loop, get a hold of the threads in this hand, my left hand, and make a little knot. So I'll take my needle and put it down on the quilt and get my threads right down close so my knot is very close to my quilt. Again, if you're using a darning needle, this knot's pretty thick, so try to get it as tight as possible. And you either want to bring it right up along the stitch line, or if you can't see through the fabric, like if I had white fabric on, I would not run my thread, no matter what I was burying, up far from the stitch line. So doing the thread flosser, pull it through, and then you would put it right through your darning needle, just like this. You would pull it through. Now Again, just to show you the self-threading needle, you can use a self-threading needle, but get one with a larger eye on it. They come in different sizes, and I don't think this one's very big, so it would shred a little bit. It's just too small to catch it all, but it did. So then I would, again, would just pull it down, but since I already have, see how it shredded the thread? So we're going to take our darning needle. A leather thimble also works really well when you're pushing something this big through, and you want to leave enough thread down here so that you can turn your needle. You might reach underneath, and I was able to put my needle right in that seam line. So I'm going to go about a ½ an inch or an inch or so. Oops, that's too far. Come back through, and then just get a hold of your needle. Pull the looser thread out first. Here we go. Perfect. And you can hear your knot pop under the fabric. So that worked out really well. And then I'll pull it back just a little bit and cut it off. And that makes sure you don't have a tail showing there. It works really pretty, and I do like using the darning needle and the floss threader. I want to talk about a few other things that you can couch with. It's not just razzle dazzle. There are a lot of things out there. This is a hand-dyed ribbon, I guess you would say. Again, you could lay it down and couch it just like I did this, but look at your yarns or thread or ribbons, whatever you're looking at. So this has like a little, for lack of a better term, seam, so to speak, coming through the center. So if you match your ribbon thread and your top thread, you could just zigzag back and forth with a pretty good size zigzag, or just stay close to the center. It would be really pretty on the, with the right colors, and just zigzag it down. Now, when you got to your corner, you would have to kind of turn it like you would a binding, so you could get your corners back down, or work it so it would curve around. Just take your time to do it. This cording, I love this stuff, and I believe it's silk if I remember correctly. I've got it in a lot of different colors. Again, it kind of comes together in the center, and you can see that it's just a nice, fairly thick cording. I would not needle through this. I don't think it would needle very well. But again, match your top thread and your cording and go back and forth. You could create some really pretty designs, and also it would go around your curves, just like I did with the razzle dazzle. Yarns, you've got so many options, and this is just a group of yarns that I have. I've got a lot of them here in the shop. So this is a thicker twisted yarn. Again, you don't want to roll it because this is going to untwist, but this would be perfect for couching. Now it has a little stretch to it, so you want to be really careful, but you could just stitch right down into that and give a nice effect. This, you could, but I probably would not. It's kind of like a tool. Depending on what you're doing, you could stitch it down, but it's not really couching. It would just be like for a wall hang as a add-on feature. This is like, it's kind of like chenille. Again, it doesn't really stretch, so you would couch that down. A thicker one, this is a chenille. This is a really twisted yarn. Don't untwist it, but you could very easily couch this on. Let's see what else we have in here. This, practice this. I would take it off to the side, because on this, and this I would definitely not try to couch. It's just too open and too frilly. I just wouldn't. But this I would practice to make sure that you could stitch into that ribbon, because it is the same effect as this. See how this is really open? It's just yarns and threads. This is too, but it's just much smaller. So practice on that. Something like this, it would be really cool in the right place. But again, you've got all this fringe, and that could create havoc. To get it going the right way, you can get it wrapped around your needle, you can get your thread looped up in it. So I probably would not. again, with this, it's gorgeous to make a scarf or whatever you're going to make. But see all this fringe on here? If you're going to couch that, you're going to have to be very careful and control all of this stuff. So I probably would not do that. I would use that for knitting or crocheting or whatever else. This is a twisted, I think it's wool. This you could couch. I wouldn't take a fiber like this that's not twisted, and I would not couch that down. This one, again, look at all these pretty yarns. I have used this one, I think it's called Benario, if I remember correctly. And it's so pretty, and you can get it in many colors. But these little sections here are, again, like loose threads. And I know when I'm doing silk fiber work and on water soluble, these will get pushed right down into your hook assembly. So on a quilt, it's obviously not going to go through your quilt, so I would practice with that, and it would be easy to get over it, but practice on something that you're not doing. Here's another example, and it's got a double row of those thread fibers. So again, I think you could couch it, and you could even twist it. This one's variegated, so even twisted, it might be pretty. This is silk ribbon, and it's fairly wide, so this would be another thing that you could easily couch on and twist it however you wanted to twist it. It's just, again, it's just hand-dyed silk ribbon. So there's a lot of options out there that you can try, but on some of them, like I've said, with the eyelashes and the little nubs, like these are pretty soft, but I wouldn't want to put this eyelash on. So try to find some various things that you would like to couch and see how they work for you. But on some of them, you definitely want to practice with them to see how they're going to react to your needle.